Unspoken Issues.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unspoken Issues podcast. That is right. We are back. There was a significant absence for the first time in a very long time this past Monday, where I didn't have an Unspoken Issues either done by myself or in the can with anybody. For the first time in a long time, Monday went silent. No source material, no Unspoken Issues dropped on the Source Material Comics podcast feed. So it's good to be actually recording something and getting things ready. We did have a poll out there, and this poll, Chris Armstrong, he's right over there. Chris, say hi to the people.
Hello.
There's Chris Armstrong. Evan Bevins is joining us as well. Evan, please say hi.
Howdy.
Howdy's good enough. I like it.
Sorry. I didn't know I was literally supposed to follow that exact instruction. I'm terribly sorry. Hi.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Now, this poll was yours, though, wasn't it, Jesse?
I was going to tell you that you told me. You said it's time to get a poll together, Jesse. I'm tired of picking up the slack here. You got to get a poll and throw it out there. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to think about it. This was at the beginning of the year, and I don't know what hit me. I don't know if it was, I have no idea actually what hit me, but I was like, I want to talk about comics that discuss mental health. And it's new year, new you. That's the big thing that everybody says when the new year hits. So I was like, I wonder what comics are out there, 90s comics, actually discuss about that. Because, when the 90s are a time period where mental health is clearly something that is on the radar. But as time progresses, there's a lot more of a focus to have good mental health past the 90s. So, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't comics that dealt with that. And I found a few.
This is before Tony Soprano made it normal to have therapy sessions.
Right. So I found a few that were pretty popular in the 90s, and threw the poll together, threw it out there on Twitter and Facebook. Had our Unspoken Decade bunch jump in and vote. Here were the options. We have X Factor 87, which is in Peter David's run. I had to go to the internet to find some of these things. This was one of the top rated ones. Throw it out, or put it, this will fit on the list for sure. Then we have the Incredible Hulk number 377, which I think is also written by Peter David, because right. I think Peter David's in the middle of his Hulk run here. And then we have Doom Patrol number 63. And yeah, that wacky bunch.
That was not written by Peter David.
Not written by Peter David. I'm certain that I cannot remember. Looking at the cover, it looks like it definitely has something to do with Crazy Jane, I think is her name. Yes. At least that's what she goes by in the show. So I was like, okay, those are a good three. I threw it out there into the internet's. What I didn't realize until seconds after I posted the poll is that I forgot to click the option that doesn't let people add suggestions to the poll for Facebook. So if you guys, I don't know if you had a chance to see, but all of a sudden, a member of the Unspoken Decade Facebook group, Joe Reza, threw on Solar Man of the Atom number 1. It's been a while since I read that. But I don't recall a big mental health discussion in that book, but I could be wrong. It was on the poll, and it ended up getting second place in the Facebook poll. So apparently at some point, we're going to have to discuss Solar Man of the Atom number 1. To kind of roll down the results here, going from least to most, the Incredible Hulk number 377 got 14% of 14 votes. I just pulled this I put the poll up January 2nd. We had 100 votes when I grabbed it from Facebook. So 14% or 14 votes in Facebook went to the Incredible Hulk number 377. And over in Twitter/X, we have it also bringing up the back end on the poll there. It only had 13.3% of the 15 votes we got there. So Incredible Hulk 377 did not make the cut. And then Doom Patrol 63 was actually winning over on Twitter/X, had 46.7%. And if you look at the poll, when it ended, they were the winner. But there, of course, only 15 votes over there. Over in Facebook land, Doom Patrol 63 got 18 votes out of the 100. And then, like I said, Solar Man of the Atom ends up with 20 votes. So that comes in second place. On top is X Factor 87 with 48 on Facebook and 40% of the 15 votes over on Twitter. Tonight, we're going to be discussing X Factor 87. I want to start with you, Chris. Have you read any run of X Factor, Peter David's X Factor, before?
Not really. I remember when I was a teenager, my cousin had a subscription to X Factor briefly for some reason, and
okay.
So I remember kind of thumbing through some of his. I don't know if I ever
It was
actually
written
even
by
read
Peter
one.
David, probably. That's the reason. Sorry.
But no, I don't really have much experience with X Factor, especially this run.
For myself, I remember grabbing some of the issues from like probably in the early 20s, around issue 23, 27, 28, somewhere around there. I was not picking up the Peter David era at all. This dropped December of 1992, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics. Evan, you and your history of X Factor.
One of the first X-Men comics I got, and one of my favorite comics of all time, is X Factor number 32.
That's right. You wrote about this, correct? Didn't you?
When X Factor was the original 5 X-Men, although Beast and Angel were out of commission, it was just Cyclops, Marvel Girl, and Iceman, and the Exterminator kids taking on a group of aliens pretending to be the Avengers. That's one of my favorite things I've ever read. I bought some X Factor here and there. I didn't have a dedicated comic shop, so I was at the mercy of Walden Books. I did not understand how comic book release schedules worked. I was just like, let's see what's out. But this issue I actually bought probably off the rack at Walden Books or somewhere like that, because it followed when I jumped headlong into the X books with Executioner's Song, which will not put my kids through college. Really thought that was going to pan out.
If you hadn't opened up the bags and to get the cards out, maybe it would have.
I have seen both opened and unopened bagged editions of these in $1 or less bins on multiple occasions. Fortunately, the story was fun, and I was thrilled to see Peter David was writing X Factor with a bunch of offbeat characters. I think it was issue 71. X Factor became a government-sponsored mutant superhero team with Havoc leading the way. I didn't know much about Multiple Man and Strong Guy, but they quickly became two of my favorite mutants. Since Peter David was writing it, I followed along with it after Executioner's Song. And so, yeah, I'm pretty sure I bought this issue right about the time it came out.
A lot of people, especially what I was reading, talked about Peter David's treatment of these characters in this book and throughout the run, making them stand out, especially with Strong Guy's one that you were talking about. I don't know a whole lot about either, but just from reading this one issue, you could tell that Peter David's working on the depth of these characters, which is great. And I think that's what really shines out through this issue, is making you realize that, these are superheroes, but they also, and this is Marvel's way, this is just about any good storyteller's way, they also are human. Peter David has a good way of doing that. I'm sure he probably polished a lot of that doing the Hulk as well. We will be discussing or quickly mentioning a primarily Hulk character in this issue, which is pretty cool.
That was another thing. I was like, oh, this is great. I remember this guy from when Peter David he was still writing the Hulk, but I was no longer following Hulk at that point. I forget when he actually left. I want to say this run lasted about 2 years. X Factor, with some iteration of this roster, went on a lot longer. But years later, he brought X Factor back as a detective agency led by Multiple Man and Wolfsbane and Strong Guy. And at one point, I think Polaris was in there a little bit, but Wolfsbane and Strong Guy especially were in that. And that went on for, I forget exactly how long, because right after the 50th issue, they renumbered it so they could do the 200th issue. But that lasted a lot longer than this original run. And the other cool thing I have to share is that a couple months before that new X Factor #1 was released, I went to Mid-Ohio-Con, where Peter David was a guest, and he performed the entire script for the first issue at a panel. Awesome.
Oh, that is great.
I really like that Madrox miniseries that kind of led into that X Factor run. I don't know. I didn't stick with it through, to when the renumbering or whatever. I don't remember how long but I really liked the Madrox series, and then I read the X Factor book for a while as well when it got started, and I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
It was good stuff.
Well, penciling this issue is one name I definitely recognize from the 90s, and that is Joe Quesada. Help me out here. Either you guys can pipe up. What does does he end up becoming like president of Marvel, or what role does he become?
Editor-in-chief, and then later chief creative officer.
Okay. All right. I really knew him from some standout stuff in the 90s. Visually, some of his stuff was very stunning. So I'll just run down real quick, taking a look at Mike's Amazing World of Comics. His first credited work on Mike's Amazing World was from early 1991 with a series with DC called Spelljammer. You guys ever hear of that?
I don't think so.
Spelljammer? Okay. All right. Spelljammer was a campaign set in the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons universe. When you look at these comics, number 8 is when he started with Spelljammer. It'll say DC at the top, and right below it, it says TSR. They were writing comics related to Dungeons and Dragons. It does a few more issues of that for DC, and then he goes into the Ray and does 5 issues of the Ray. I don't know if you guys have ever read that. I haven't, but I can see the covers.
I think Christopher Priest wrote them.
In August of 1992, he then draws Batman, Sword of Azrael. That goes on for 4 issues, and then he promptly jumps to Marvel for this issue here and works on X Factor to issue 92. Now, can you guess what his next 3 issues to finish out 1993 were? He leaves Marvel at this point. Try and take a guess. This is 1993, and he's finishing out 1993, getting into 1994. What do you think?
It was either Ninjak or Ash, which was his creator book.
All right. You got one right. So that's one. Right. Ninjak number 1.
Oh, so it was different. It wasn't a run. It was 3 different actual issues?
Yes. It was 3 different issues that he started. Ninjak number 1 was 1. Okay. Then there's 2 more. You got any thoughts, Evan?
I just know that X Factor 92 was the Fatal Attractions issue with the Havoc hologram on the cover.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I don't know. I know he came back to Marvel, but I don't know.
Okay.
I do not know. Right. Was it another Valiant comic?
Yes. All 3 of these are Valiant related. Two of them definitely are, and then one of them is related in some way.
Is one of them a Deathmate?
Yes. Deathmate Epilogue number 1 was the other one, and then the last one is a Valiant title.
Solar Man of the Atom.
No, we were not covering that.
That would have been
book.
a great tie.
I was going to say Exo Man of War Iron Man. Actually, now I think that came out later in the 90s, like in 97 or 8 or something.
Yeah, that was Exo Man of War number 0. So it was just starting. Exo Man of War number 0, Ninjak number 1, and Deathmate Epilogue number 1 rounds out his 1993. Then he gets into 94, which I'm pretty sure Ash happens at that point. Of course, he became higher up in the chain at Marvel, but his credits on Mike's Amazing World, I thought they'd be a lot longer than they are. They're not, but I think that's because
it seems like after he became an editor, he did the Kevin Smith Daredevil stuff,
right?
And then he did One More Day, I guess.
Marvel Knights,
right? Yeah, but like once he like a higher up, he didn't do much art after that.
He did a lot of covers,
right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. All right. So there you go. Writer and penciler. We got them out of the way. Writer Peter David, Joe Quesada on pencils, inked by Al Milgram, lettered by Richard Starkings. He's definitely a guy that we are going to mention a lot doing these 90s comics. Steve Dutro also on the letters and colored by Marie Javins. Are you guys ready? I'll run down my synopsis here of the whole thing, and then we'll talk about things. So let's talk about Rain Sinclair. The way this book opens, we see Rain. My goodness, what is going on?
Right in the 90s, right? No debate. This is a 90s comic with a little Ren and Stimpy parody.
Rain and Stimpy, and that is how we open things, with a full page splash of that.
It's actually Rain and Stimpy.
Oh, you're right. I said Stimpy.
So,
Rain
and that's
Stimpy.
Stimpy is Farrell, the Rob Liefeld X-Force character. We think that's a dig from Peter David.
It's at least Peter David going, we've got 2 Wolf Girls in the 4X books, right?
Yeah.
At the very least, it's that.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together there. Yeah, there's not the greatest sentiment between those 2, that's for sure. All right. So we got this cartoon sketch going on, and then we start to realize that it's a dream. Rain is telling somebody who's apparently a psychologist, and she's explaining what's going on. So I'll kind of start there. Rain Sinclair's session opens with humor and imagination as her inner turmoil is masked by a parody-like dream sequence called Rain and Stimpy, blending her personality with absurd, cartoonish antics. The surreal moment shifts to a serious tone as she shares the recurring dream she's been experiencing, a mix of trauma and longing. Rain wrestles with her identity, the love she craves, and the unspoken emotions tied to the authority figures like Xavier and Reverend Craig. Her raw confession about unrequited love and suppressed feelings reveals her deep inner pain and the difficulty of self-acceptance. And then we have Pietro Maximoff's session, Quicksilver, by the way. His demeanor is every bit as arrogant and impatient as expected. Holding a Rubik's Cube, he critiques Doc Samson. That's right, Doc Samson is on the other side of the... I don't know if we even see Doc Samson in this until the end, do we? Maybe there's some portions in here. Yeah.
They don't reveal him. They give the hint of the green and the word bubbles. It's supposed to be a mystery until the end who they're actually talking to. But
if someone's getting psychiatric care in the Marvel universe, and chances are it's from Doc Samson.
Definitely.
I guess Moonstone's technically a psychiatrist, and there's probably a couple. Isn't Dr. Voodoo, isn't he a psychologist? But usually, if you're getting mental health treatment in the Marvel universe, it's from Doc Samson. If you're getting a cab in Marvel New York, Moon Knight's driving it, things like that.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why they were setting it up to be kind of a surprise or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah. While holding a Rubik's Cube, Quicksilver critiques Doc Samson's methods and delves into his sense of superiority. Pietro reveals his frustration with the world, describing how his life feels slowed to a crawl by others' inefficiency, an analogy that ties to his super speed. His admission of holding himself to impossibly high standards hints at insecurity masked by arrogance, showcasing a vulnerability rarely seen. Then we have Polaris, Lorna Dane, appears withdrawn and disinterested in Doc Samson's office. When pressed, she admits she doesn't want to be there, brushing off introspection. Yet her body language and terse replies suggest unresolved struggles. This sets the stage for future revelations about her psyche and emotional state. The surface coolness begins to crack. Her defensive masks deeper insecurities, particularly about her self-image and how others perceive her. When pressed, she confronts her frustrations over her appearance, feeling inadequate compared to other women like Rain or Val Cooper. Doc Samson digs deeper, exposing how past experiences with people getting into her head have scarred her, both figuratively and literally, referencing her previous trauma at the hands of mind-controlling enemies. In a vulnerable moment, she lashes out, her tears revealing a mix of pain and defiance. Despite the rawness of her emotions, she quickly retreats behind her defenses, leaving the conversation unresolved. Next up is Strong Guy, Guido Carosella. Guido, the team's comedic muscle, masks his pain with jokes and bravado. During his session, he reveals his troubled childhood as the class clown, a defense mechanism to deflect bullying and emotional pain. Flashbacks depict him as a nerdy outcast who struggled to fit in, using humor as a shield. When his mutant powers activated, unleashing a monstrous burst of kinetic energy, it came at a cost. Every time Guido absorbs energy, his body suffers agonizing strain, leaving him in constant hidden pain. Yet he never lets on, fearing pity from his teammates. For Guido, humor is a lifeline, a way to belong and endure. Jamie Madrox's Multiple Man is a whirlwind of personality, much like the duplicates he creates. He oscillates between deflection and introspection, revealing a childhood of isolation on a deserted farm with only his parents' lifeless bodies as company, a detail that deeply shaped his psyche. Through word association, Doc Samson uncovers Jamie's need for attention and connection, born from that lonely upbringing. Jamie admits to craving reactions from others, whether through pranks, jokes, or creative uses of his powers. Beneath his humor and antics lies a fear of being alone, driving his need to feel seen and alive. Then we have our leader, Havoc, Alex Summers. Alex's session explores his insecurities as the team's leader in his complicated relationship with his brother Cyclops. He admits to feeling the weight of responsibility, always vigilant to protect the team while grappling with his own self-doubt. Alex envies Scott's natural authority and confidence, feeling like he's perpetually living in his shadow. Though he respects his brother, there's an undercurrent of resentment and frustration. Alex's fear of failure and judgment looms large, leaving him constantly questioning his place within the team and as a leader. And to wrap things up, Polaris comes back. The issue circles back to Polaris, who storms into a session determined to assert her confidence. She declares how much effort she's put into improving herself, dieting, exercising, and focusing on her appearance. Her outburst suggests she's trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. In a dramatic moment, she changes into a bold, revealing costume, exclaiming, "What do you think?" This performance is her way of reclaiming control over how she is seen, though it's clear she's still struggling with deeper insecurity. Doc Samson, unfazed, notes her transformation, but offers no judgment, leaving Lorna to grapple with her own feeling. Val Cooper shows up. From my understanding, she was the one that put the team into this because she felt that there must have been some kind of recent battle or something that she felt the team might be traumatized from. So she's the one that set these sessions up. It was
Executioner's Song.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I think this was the first issue after Executioner's.
Val Cooper, the team's government liaison, reflects on the team in a candid conversation with Doc Samson. She notes Rain's youthful crushes, Lorna's intelligence and emotional openness, Pietro's arrogance, Guido's humor masking pain, Jamie's isolation, and Alex's growth as a leader. She questions why X Factor doesn't function like other mutant groups, and Samson replies with the truth. They're refreshingly human. Val storms out in frustration, grappling with her own doubts about the team's unconventional dynamics. And as for the cliffhanger, when Doc Samson tries to catch up with Val after she has left in order to find out where to send the bill, she's gone. She was suddenly ensnared by a mass of tentacles and disappeared. So who knows what happened to Val? So there you go. Oh, hey, Evan does. That is a very long breakdown of X Factor 87. Evan, I'm going to go ahead and start with you here. What do you think of the issue as a whole? What do you think stand out to you? As far as these sessions go, like I said, it's a great bit of digging deeper into the characters. What are your thoughts, Ben?
Well, this would have come out around the same time as Uncanny X-Men 297 and served to further my education that people did not have to punch each other to make comics.
Yes.
Uncanny X-Men 297 was a watershed moment. That was the issue after Executioner's Song, where it was just everybody hanging out, Professor X able to walk for a little bit because of the techno-organic virus, and nobody fought anybody. You can tell superhero stories without punching and blowing things up. This one is cited by a lot of people as just a real standout issue, and because it's utterly compelling without any of that, of the usual action. The one that stands out to me the most is I've never liked Quicksilver. He's usually not very likable. The character doesn't interest me. The snap card I can take or leave. But here, Peter David he gets 3 or 4 pages, but boiling down where he says everything in his life feels like waiting in line at the supermarket behind somebody who can't find their money or whatever. Whenever I get annoyed with Quicksilver, I'm like, oh yeah, that. I mean, he explained and perfectly boiled down that character and didn't change him, but somehow made you feel a little empathy for him. When he's talking about Rain's unrequited love for Havoc, that wasn't just crush. She actually, I think it was an Extinction Agenda, which I never read, but something to do with Genosha. They had both been manipulated, mind controlled, and genetically tied her to Havoc. So that she had to follow his orders and was blindly loyal to him, and that got mixed up in these feelings. So, like, it's not that she really loves Havoc, but she's been made to feel that she does.
Mm-hmm.
And then Strong Guy, yeah, he's goofy looking character. He was always drawn disproportionately. And then Peter David's like, you know what? I'm going to explain why he looks like that instead of it just being that's comics, and explains why he is always cracking jokes and things like that. So it's just a really cool way to get to know these characters. Havoc has always been in Cyclops' shadow, and his dynamic where he's seen as a leader and yet has these crises of confidence continues today. Also, Quesada draws him with arguably the most luxurious hair on the team.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Polaris is insecure. If I had any criticism, some of the stuff with Polaris, and I feel like Peter David was trying to, make it topical with her weight and self-image, felt a little too forced. Not the idea, but some of the dialogue felt a little too on the nose, I guess. But it was still good. That was the only weak link I saw. Not even weak, just maybe not as good as some of the rest of it. I love seeing Doc Samson at the ink. I remember him from Peter David's Hulk, the first comic I collected and followed. So seeing Doc Samson in there was a treat.
Yeah, I shared the same sentiment you had about the Polaris part of things in regards to what the message is. And then I think what made me go, okay, this is the 90s. These are comics for kids at the time. And I'm 14, 15 years old at this point. So I can understand where Peter David is shooting for the message. And looking back at it now, we're looking at it as adults. I don't know if that shapes I'm sure that in some way shapes our opinion on what's going on, especially for me, being the first time reading it. It still crossed my mind. I was like, oh, but back then I probably would have been like, okay, I know what's going on here. Everybody seems to have a bit of body issues, especially when you're going as a teenager. You're worried about how you look. You're worried about, am I too fat? My goodness, I don't think I've ever seen Polaris drawn with a bit of weight on her. Some of the most beautiful people out there go through that. Actually, it's kind of sad because there are a lot more cases of that, especially when it comes to celebrities that starve themselves or have horrible like dieting habits because they don't want to put they don't want to put a pound on. That's the worst thing. I'm not going to get that phone call. But anyway, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I mean, it wasn't bad. There were a couple times where I was like, oh, okay, we get it. I don't remember if that had come up as much in the other issues. So maybe that was built on. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. The stuff with Guido and Quicksilver, I think, still it holds up and endures today.
Yeah, I agree. My notes, I had a note for each. What was cool about this, doing the synopsis for this, I kind of broke down the sessions and made a little note on each. So it was kind of nice because it was already kind of broke down for me. When we look at Rain, you could tell they're diving into some really rough stuff that she's had in the past. And my note here was like, she seems damaged in a way, but aren't we all? I mean, there's some type of trauma we probably all experienced. And, we never got therapy for. We never got any type of help trying to address it. We kind of had to go through it ourselves. So that's the way you start off this book is by acknowledging somebody's trauma and some of the stuff that they're going through. So why did I write this down? Because I cannot remember this. On Quicksilver's segment, I wrote down LOL PMS. What did he say it was? It was because didn't he use it?
Oh, it was
as a phrase?
Maximoff syndrome. I think it was. Pietro Maximoff syndrome, an uncontrollable urge to be high-handed and arrogant.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, yep. But my note
by Val, I believe.
Yeah. Although speaking of Val, I do have to say at the end, he kind of comes in and says the opposite of everything Samson found in his session.
Yeah. Right.
I thought just showed how nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Wolfsbane had a crush on Alex once, but that's over. Oh, Lorna's very together, not afraid to let people in emotionally. Pietro, snotty for no reason whatsoever. Guido just cares about himself, feels no pain. Yeah, just... So she's worried about him, and Samson's like, no, they're just people.
Guido, strong guy, that whole revelation. Like I said, I don't know much about that character other than just seeing him. I don't think I've read anything with him in it. Maybe an issue of X-Men or something like that. But I've always wondered, why does he look like that? Mm-hmm. And there is a very good explanation that's explained here. Watching him become distorted, it hurts to do that. His only coping mechanism is to make people laugh, which... my gosh, this is 1992, the end of 92, 93, and you still see that today. That's just something humans do. The Fear of Being Alone by Jamie Madrox, that was pretty powerful. His discussion there, this is really early on in Multiple Man's career or as a character.
He had been around... I forget when he was introduced, it was in a Fantastic Four annual. He had been around since like the late 70s. I want to say he was in Fallen Angels, maybe. He had been around for a while, but Peter David's the guy that really developed him, kind of elaborated on who he was. Other people have written him, but he didn't create Multiple Man, but he's almost one of those guys where if it's not Peter David writing him, I'm like, is it really Multiple Man? So, I mean, again, that may be overstating it, but Peter David made Multiple Man the character that most people think of today.
I was going to say his fear of being alone when he literally never has to be. His power is, okay, I'm alone. Well, I don't have to be. There's another me, and you got two people there. That's really brilliant when it comes to character development. This is the one guy that doesn't ever have to be alone if he doesn't want to be, but he's still afraid of being alone. That's good stuff.
And to correct me further, he first appeared in Giant Size Fantastic Four #4 in 1974.
So he's been around for a while. Was he a villain initially?
I have not read that one, but he's shown on the cover fighting the Fantastic Four. So,
well, there's some misunderstanding or he finally becomes a good guy.
Yeah. And the suit that he wears, the costume he wears that has a headpiece too, was supposed to help control his powers, but now he rarely wears that, and it's just usually has a shirt with some kind of design from that on it.
Okay. And yeah, Havoc's session, I wrote down here, younger brother syndrome. He's always in Cyclops' shadow, trying to measure up. That shapes you as going into an adult. It's stuff that lingers from you as a kid going into an adult. As a man with 2 sons, I completely understand and have seen the younger brother syndrome before.
There's also a little bit of meta aspect to that because, Havoc, I've always thought had a cool costume. I've always kind of liked Havoc, but if you had to describe Havoc in 2 words, they'd be Cyclops' brother.
Yep.
Like
always.
Even the character, it's like, oh yeah, X Factor. Cyclops' brother is leading them now.
Man, I could remember reading Inferno, and I've mentioned Inferno a lot on here because that's kind of what got me into collecting comics sequentially. Like, I've got to read this story. And that happens there too. Havoc, Alex, is not infatuated with his brother's ideals. He just doesn't like his brother in any way. And if I remember correctly, Havoc ends up becoming one of the forces that fight against Cyclops and the rest of them. Because there is oh man, it's been a while. I need to read those issues again. But I mean, one of the covers is, I think it's the X Factor. It's got Jean and it's got Madeline on the front. It's almost like a red cover, and they're interlocked and they're going to battle, our Goblin Queen versus the original Jean Grey. Anyway, Havoc's hanging around and palling around with Madeline at that time. Of course, I think he was a member of X Factor, and so was Madeline, or maybe I got that backwards. He was a member of X-Men.
In Inferno, Havoc was with the X-Men, and Madeline was hanging around with the X-Men. And they even kind of rekindled their romance on Krakoa.
Did they really?
Yeah, she was a major player in that for a while. I'm honor bound to note that they were both in the Hellions series, which was the best thing to come out of the Krakoa era.
Okay, duly noted. Duly noted.
Yeah, outside of Havoc, the list of characters in that series could have also been a list of people I never wanted to read a comic book about. And I loved it.
All right. Well, that's solid writing right there. That's good. Lorna Dane comes back. I have 2 words, and it says, "Whoa, Nelly, what a costume." Still can't escape that 15-year-old me. Chris Armstrong, you've been silent over there. I apologize. I've been jabbering on for so long. What are your thoughts on the issue, brother?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else that you guys haven't already covered. Like Evan mentioned, this is the rare 90s comic that there's almost no action to speak of. It's just a lot of character stuff, which is good. I do love...
And I was going to say, and it's Quesada. Like, you want to see these action scenes, and you're not getting it.
The one chance he has really is the Guido flashback. But I like his wide shot of Quicksilver. He's got his nice suit on. And he tie your shoes, man. Come on. He's got these sneakers. I wonder where he gets his kicks, because normal Nikes are not going to hold up to that kind of speed.
No.
They're made with unstable molecules, I'm sure.
They have to be. Okay. And Quesada, you mentioned Quesada. This is early Quesada, which looks a lot like early... Greg Capullo was kind of aping Todd McFarlane around this time. It looks like Quesada's kind of aping Greg Capullo's. Not that that's a negative. It's good stuff, but I definitely see hints of that Greg Capullo Spawn era stuff in this. What is this, 92? I guess Capullo probably wasn't even doing Spawn yet, so that's probably not a fair comparison. But
I think we're getting into 90. Yeah, this hit shelves at the end of 92. Cover dated for 93, but yeah, Cap's going to be tapped pretty soon, not within a year or so.
I think he was doing X-Men or stuff in the X office anyway around this before he went to do Marvel. I think he was doing maybe X-Force or something before he went to do Spawn. But yeah, the one that really stood out was the Guido thing, and the, like Evan said, the explanation of why he looks so out of proportion, and that Peter David was able to kind of tie that into his origin. Very cool. And like, there's not a panel in this, which I guess this is probably the longest segment too, because there's like 3 pages devoted to his flashback. But the current day stuff, he's never not wearing a giant smile on his face. And then we get to the end where he's like, yeah, I'm in constant agony. It never stops her. Like, ooh. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. And then I can't not mention the credits on the last page, which are all stuff. And Joe Quesada had to be the gynecologist.
Oh, of course.
Way to go, Joe. I'll bet that was intended. I'm sure he requested that.
Yeah.
And then also Tom DeFalco proctology.
Proctology.
It's not just Joe Q getting some gags in there, but yeah, pretty good issue overall.
Yeah, I mean, flew under my radar, and just like you had said, this was a book a lot of people touted as one of the better books. It doesn't have to be a pow bang boom. It's definitely something that you could take this, and it's very, heady. It's very emotional. It can be very raw. And it takes you into these characters, so you can learn about them and what makes them tick. I agree. This was a good pick. The people out there knew what they were doing. They knew what they were making a decision on here. So I'm glad I got the chance to read it. Let's pick a panel, because that's what we do here on the Unspoken Issues podcast. We pick panels. I'm not going to start. I feel like mine's going to get taken. And if it does, I need to scramble and find another one. Did any of you guys prepare for this? The first person that prepared gets to go. Okay, go ahead.
I did as well.
I'm on page 15, panel 4. It's part of the flashback with Guido, where it's the panel where you see his tiny head and his giant shoulders developing, and the bus behind him.
Yes.
That's what I got.
That's crazy. That's exactly where I was going to go.
And a lot of almost Kirby Crackle looking stuff around him. I guess that's ionic energy, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I mean, again, we're here for Joe Q. We're looking to see what is so dynamic. There's not a lot, but this flashback sequence gives us enough to... it looks great and disgusting at the same time. It's just so gross. All right, Evan, you said you had one there. What was your pick?
Yeah, mine is one of the most striking ones in there to me. It's page 9 at the bottom, specifically the bottom left, where Lorna's just kind of looking off into space. And I guess you don't know exactly what she's thinking, but there's a lot going on there in that expression for someone just sitting, not talking, and staring off into space. There's a lot of conflict going on there, just really, really striking to me.
Yeah, she's very kind of so withdrawn, does not want to. And I don't think any of these people wanted to participate in this, but she's got a lot going on. The purpose of Doc Samson being there is to find out what is wrong, what can we work on, what kind of things bother you. And just looking at that picture, it's like looks like there's a lot that bothers her. She may not want to talk about it, but it's there.
Because right there, she says, "Are we done here?" And he says, "Well, if you want to leave, you can." And so I guess what that picture is her trying to decide if she wants to be there or not. Like, okay, I can leave, but clearly I've got stuff I want to say. I just found that really striking.
I think that, mental health is a good thing to have. I think a lot of us sometimes take that for granted, may not realize that it would be good to talk to somebody about something. And those panels right there are almost exactly that. Like, that there is something I could possibly be better. I could possibly learn something about myself, be a better person, whatever, if I just opened up a little bit and talked to somebody about it. And that's hard to do. And, those are very big. That is exemplified in that panel. So that's a good choice. I'm going to go with Quicksilver and the Rubik's Cube. I don't know why, but I think it's hilarious. I love how the way that whole panel is set up, where he finishes the Rubik's Cube. It's on the side, which, again, this is Joe Q doing some of these panel layouts. He's doing some of this crazy art and using the page as best as he can, and negative space here too, which is awesome. There's a lot of light that shines on Quicksilver's right side of his face, and then it goes into shadow. It's all white on that one side of his face, but the Rubik's Cube, as he just kind of like, I finished it, I'm done. I liked learning about these characters. I didn't know much about Guido going into this. Quicksilver, I was right there with Evan. I thought he was always a jerk, but you kind of understand, like, okay, you are impatient for a reason, because you are one of the fastest people out there in the Marvel universe. It's tough to try and sit back and watch everybody else fumble around when you could have this done in 2 seconds. It's tough.
I did want to note, I sent you guys a cover. Peter David did a sequel to this in that X Factor volume that he brought back, where they were the detective agency and Doc Samson came in to debrief them.
I'm wondering what that was.
That was a variant cover. Might have been a second printing, but as soon as he started a new X Factor ongoing, people were like, "You're going to bring Doc Samson in, right?"
I like that variant, man. With it being Quesada, that's pretty cool. That's really cool.
Oh gosh, yeah, I just knew it was out there. I didn't even pay that much attention. I didn't realize he drew that. That's great.
Were you going to say something, Chris?
Just that we didn't really talk about the cover to the X Factor 87, but I like it.
So glad you brought that up.
Superhero team, they're facing off against the psychiatrist. You just see his legs at the easy chair. But it's cool having Wolfsbane tearing through the logo and stuff. It's a pretty cool cover. Misleading towards what's inside the issue, but that's okay.
Yeah, you got a point there. That was actually something that I was going to bring up, is like how misleading is the cover when you think that, oh my gosh, who is this new villain that they're going to destroy? And of course, it's not the case. So yeah, I heard you, Evan. This is your action right here. I see it. That's pretty cool. Joe Q, Al Milgram. That's awesome. All right. I think that's going to wrap it up here, unless you guys have any other final thoughts you want to throw out there.
I think I'm good.
I've interrupted you guys enough.
Well, you have the floor, Evan Bevins. Why don't you tell everybody about what's going on over on Asterisk 51?
Asterisk51.blogspot.com. You can find my writing about, like Jesse mentioned, X Factor number 32 and Uncanny X-Men 297, and a whole lot of other comics, from Doom Patrol to NFL Super Pro. Always got to, if you are sad that the Super Bowl and you're sad that football season's over, NFL Super Pro just keeps football everywhere. Even when there's a basketball game or people are destroying the rainforest, he tackles crime.
Ah, lovely, lovely.
Actually, just today, I did an episode of Comic Strip with Mark Radulich talking about a comic and a movie called Corrective Measures, which is about a prison for super. Then, I'll pop up talking Marvel Snap with Jesse on Snap Material and whatever else I can trick him into letting me on for.
That's right. We talk Marvel Snap over there on Snap Material, and we have a good time. The most recent episodes just released about a week or so ago, where we were discussing the upcoming season of Brave New World, I think is what it was titled. Dark Avengers was last season. One of my favorite top fives we've done in a while. All right, Chris Armstrong. Do you have anything going on over there with Because Movies or the other podcast that you do, which is titled, hold on a second, I remember it.
Small Screeners.
Small Screeners, yeah. Actually, both have been kind of on hiatus. My co-host had dental surgery recently, so we're waiting to find out when we can get back into recording. Plus, I had a lot of stuff going on. It's just been a awkward few weeks trying to find time to record. But we do have the archives up that you can check out. Episodes of Small Screeners we did on Batman Under the Red Hood. We had one on Justice League New Frontier with Jesse jumping in on it. We also had one on the Punisher movie from 1989. So there's some comic book stuff in the feed for Small Screeners there for you if you're interested.
Hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen, go back into the archive. You should be able to find a lot of shows that I've done with these two guys. Me and Evan hang out. We do Snap Material. The trio of us have hung out and done plenty of Unspoken Issues episodes. Chris Armstrong and I started it out. It was me and Chris Armstrong, episode 0. Go find it, folks. It's out there. I'm going to plug the YouTube because that's probably where you can find it. The Source Material Comics Podcast YouTube should be able to find all the episodes of Unspoken Issues out there, along with everything that Source Material has done, and Snap Material as well. So go check that out and punch it in any podcatcher. You should be able to listen to anything that we've done in the past as well. So with that being said, we're getting out of here. That's Chris Armstrong. That over there is Evan Bevins. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thanks for joining us. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.